أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. Welcome. Today, we're going to turn our attention inward, to the human heart, and we're going to use just two incredibly potent verses from the Qur'an to guide us. Together, we're going to explore the tyrant that can, and sometimes does, live within each and every one of us.
You see, the story we're diving into is an ancient one, the story of Pharaoh, or as he's known in the Qur'an, Firʿawn. But the real journey today, well, it isn't about history class. It's internal. We're going to see how this powerful narrative acts as a timeless mirror, showing us something profound about our own inner state.
Here they are. These are the two verses from Surah Al-Qamar that are at the very heart of our reflection today. So simple, but wow, are they packed with meaning. And indeed, warnings came to the people of Firʿawn. They denied all our signs, so we seized them with a mighty, overpowering grip. Everything we're going to talk about today really just unfolds from these powerful words.
And I want to make sure to mention that the insights we're exploring here have been so beautifully compiled by Mir Ali Shah for the Living the Wisdom of a Qur'an podcast. We're really building on that wonderful work to bring this reflection to you.
So why zoom in on Firʿawn? Well, it's because of where this story appears in this chapter of the Qur'an. After the text walks us through other spiritual diseases, things like denial, arrogance, moral confusion, it presents tyranny as the final, most extreme disorder of the soul. It's the ultimate cautionary tale. And this right here gets to the core of the whole idea. Firʿawn isn't just some king from a history book. In the spiritual tradition, he's an archetype. He's a symbol for a part of our own self, what we call the nafs, or the ego, when it gets this idea that it can be its own god. It's that state of being so hardened, so wrapped up in its own authority, that it just can't see the truth anymore.
One of the most incredible things about the Qur'an is how it weaves together the outer story and the inner meaning. There's the history, the what happened back then, and then there's the spiritual warning, which is all about what is happening inside me right now. So let's see how this beautiful braiding works with our two verses.
Notice the emphasis on that little word, all. Firʿawn's crime wasn't just that he denied a sign here or there, he denied all of them. Outwardly, this meant rejecting miracles, rejecting reason, rejecting conscience. And inwardly, well, that mirrors a total shutdown of our own internal guidance system. The great scholar al-Ghazālī had a name for this, qiswat al-qalb. It means a hardness of the heart, a state where truth just bounces off. It can't get in.
And just think about how many warnings there were. It wasn't a one-and-done deal. You had Prophet Musa's clear signs, the 9 great trials the Qur'an talks about, not to mention all those internal whispers of conscience and intuition. And doesn't that sound familiar? It's a direct parallel to our own lives. How many signs do we receive every single day, big and small?
Okay, so this brings us to a much deeper look at the anatomy of the ego. The Sufi tradition, especially, reads the story of Firʿawn as the ultimate symbol of the tyrannical nafs, that part of us that can become dangerously drunk on its own sense of self.
The Sufi master al-Qushayri just nailed it with his stunningly simple line. He said, Firʿawn is the nafs when it says, I am enough. Wow, let that sink in for a second. That's the root of the problem right there. That declaration of absolute self-sufficiency. I don't need guidance. I don't need correction. I don't need God. I am enough.
And the great mystic Ibn Arabi explains how this tyranny actually grows. What he reveals is so profound. It doesn't start with trying to dominate other people. No, it starts inside. First, the soul tyrannizes itself. It justifies its every move, refuses to admit it's wrong, and silences that inner critic. It's only after the ego wins this internal war that the tyranny spills outward into the world as a desperate need to control everything and everyone around us.
So what happens when this ego tyranny goes completely unchecked? The verse tells us, we seized them with a mighty, overpowering grip. But what does that grip really mean for us on a spiritual level? It's not just about punishment. It's actually about the end of a very powerful illusion.
Outwardly, sure, the mighty grip is the historical collapse that sooner or later awaits every tyrant. But inwardly, for someone on a spiritual path, this moment is something else entirely. It's the moment the false self, our inner Firዖn, finally shatters. Now, it might feel like a crisis, but in reality, it's a moment of incredible grace. It's a liberation from the prison we've built for ourselves.
And there's even this fascinating layer from the mystical sciences. Using the Abjad numerical system, the letters in Fir'aun's name add up and eventually reduce to the number 1. This is seen as a beautiful symbol of the ego's great illusion, its false claim to be the one, the true center of all existence.
And what is absolutely incredible is how this ancient spiritual wisdom is being echoed by modern science. Neuroscience is now showing us that unchecked power literally changes our brain. It weakens our empathy circuits. It creates a kind of moral blindness. The Qur'an's portrait of Firʿawn isn't just a story. It's a psychologically perfect description of a real, timeless human condition.
So after exploring all of this, the real work begins. The whole point is to turn that mirror inward. These verses aren't really about a king who lived thousands of years ago. They are about the Firʿawn that can rise up inside each of us. So let's just take a quiet moment to reflect with a few questions.
Let's just ask ourselves, honestly and gently, where in my life do I insist on being right, even when all the signs are telling me I might be wrong? Where do I find myself silencing my own conscience, maybe because what it's saying just challenges my comfort zone?
Where am I trying to control every outcome instead of learning how to surrender to a wisdom that's so much greater than my own?
And finally, where has my heart grown a little hard? Where do I find myself unmoved by reminders that once upon a time would have really touched me?
And maybe this is the most beautiful takeaway of all. That mighty grip we read about is not something for the spiritual seeker to fear. It is the very grace that sets us free. It's the force that finally collapses the prison of the ego, and in doing so, liberates the true self that's been trapped inside.
So let's end, not with another summary, but with this beautiful prayer, this intimate supplication. Let's just hold it together in our hearts for a moment. O Allah, rescue me from the Firዖn within. Soften my heart before it hardens. Let me hear your warnings, see your signs, and surrender to your truth before the grip of consequence reaches me. Amen.
Thank you for sharing in this reflection.